I wish to begin my remarks this morning by paying glowing tribute to the men and women of the Ghana Armed Forces, and indeed our entire security services, because as we celebrate 80 years of the United Nations, we must celebrate the sacrifices of Ghana's troops. Since our first deployment in peace operations to the Congo in 1960, 65 years on, Ghana has remained a top 10 troop contributing nation to peace operations of the United Nations. And as we gather here, I want us to specially not only congratulate the United Nations, but also congratulate our men and women in uniform. And I want you to render a resounding applause for our gallant men and women. And think about it. In various theaters of conflict, when other countries have left, we remember the story of Rwanda, when everybody left, all troops left, from some of the most endowed countries with weapons so sophisticated that Ghana is yet to attain. And yet, because of compassion, because of courage, because of the respect for human life, Ghanaian troops stayed behind. They never left. They never left Rwanda. Another round of applause for our troops. And that has been the story from Rwanda to Lebanon to Somalia to Sudan, various theaters of conflict. Ghanaian troops have gained global renown. They never leave. They never abandon the task. They are professional, and they protect human life at the risk of their own lives. And I thought that today, before my prepared remarks, I offer from the bottom of my heart, on behalf of His Excellency, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, John Dramani Mahama, President of the Republic, we are a nation grateful. We are an international community grateful to Ghanaian troops for making all of us proud. We celebrate you today, and you deserve all the honors. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and privilege to warmly welcome you to this year's flag-raising ceremony in commemoration of the 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. Today, we gather not only to mark the establishment of a global institution, but also to reaffirm our shared responsibility to uphold and advance its enduring ideals of peace, development, and human rights. The theme for this year's celebration, UN at 80, Ghana and the UN, shared responsibility for a better tomorrow, serves as a timely call to action. It reminds us that collective responsibility and unity remain essential to overcoming the complex and evolving challenges facing our world. For 8 decades, the United Nations has stood as a beacon of hope and international cooperation, a platform for dialogue, a bridge between nations, and a powerful vehicle for shared progress. From the ashes of World War II, the UN emerged as a promise of peace and human dignity. Over the years, it has evolved into a driving force for global development, humanitarian action, and international solidarity. Its impact has reached every corner of the globe, including here in Ghana, where the UN's partnership has played a vital role in shaping our national development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Ghana's relationship with the United Nations is deeply anchored in our shared history and values. Since becoming the first country in sub-Saharan Africa to gain independence, Ghana has maintained a close and productive partnership with the United Nations in advancing peace, democratic governance, and sustainable development. Through its agencies, funds, and programs such as the United Nations Development Programme, UNDP, United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, World Health Organization, WHO, Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, and United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, the UN has supported Ghana's efforts to enhance healthcare, expand educational opportunities, empower women and youth, and build resilient communities. We particularly acknowledge the invaluable role of the United Nations in supporting Ghana to align its national development priorities with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The Office of the UN Resident Coordinator has been a steadfast partner in our pursuit of poverty reduction, social inclusion, environmental protection, and economic transformation, from advancing climate adaptation and resilience to promoting digital innovation and governance reforms. The UN continues to be a key partner in Ghana's vision for a prosperous, inclusive, and sustainable future. In furtherance of Ghana's steadfast commitment to the principles and goals of the United Nations, our country continues to play an active role in advancing peace, human rights, and humanitarian protection. The year 2024 witnessed a troubling rise in attacks on humanitarian aid workers, and early data for 2025 shows an alarming continuation of this trend. Recognizing the urgent need for decisive action, I had the honor on behalf of Ghana to join over 100 countries in signing the Declaration for the Protection of Humanitarian Personnel during the high-level week of the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. Through this declaration, Ghana reaffirms its enduring belief that humanitarian workers, those who risk their lives to save others, must themselves be protected. This commitment reflects our broader resolve to uphold the dignity of every human being and to ensure that global solidarity remains at the heart of multilateral action. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we commemorate 80 years of the United Nations, I wish to re-echo the call made by His Excellency John Dramani Mahama at the 80th United Nations General Assembly. 8 decades on, the urgency for reform remains as strong as ever. Africa's continued exclusion from the permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council represents a clear injustice between the principles of equality that the UN embodies and the current structure of global governance, particularly 20 years since the Eswatini Consensus, when Africa made a very clear and unambiguous demand for justice at the United Nations. If we are truly to share responsibility for a better tomorrow, then our international institutions must reflect today's global realities. It is time for Africa to have a full and equal voice at the decision-making table. Even as we press for reform and justice, we must celebrate the many achievements of the United Nations, from peacekeeping and humanitarian assistance to promoting human rights and sustainable development. The UN has helped build a more stable and compassionate world. Ghana, as a proud and long-standing contributor to UN peacekeeping missions, remains committed to supporting efforts that restore peace and hope in conflict-affected regions. And today, as we celebrate 80 years of the United Nations, we are proud that we can say as a country that 80 years on, Ghana has never been one of those countries to foment trouble. Ghana has never started any war in any part of this world. And we urge other countries to learn, to emulate from the inspiring example of Ghana. If all countries were to emulate the example of Ghana, we shall indeed live in a world without conflict, a world without strife, a world without mass killings, and a world without genocide. Today, as we raise the UN flag, we honor the service and sacrifice of those who have worked tirelessly under its banner. We also renew our commitment to the UN Charter to uphold peace, protect human rights, and foster multilateral cooperation for the good of all humanity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me to reaffirm that Ghana remains unwavering in its commitment to multilateralism and to the belief that cooperation, not confrontation, is the surest path to a more peaceful and prosperous world. Together as partners, we can build a United Nations that is more effective, more inclusive, and more reflective of the shared humanity that binds us.